Hello everyone, and thank you for viewing this presentation. My name is Michael Moran, and the subject matter that we will be covering today is the economic impact of open access institutions in the United States, and we'll be specifically talking about the open access community colleges and their short and long-term impacts. I would first like to introduce the open access community colleges. These institutions are guided by the mission to foster educational gains for individuals as well as provide support in meeting community needs. The education and training provided by open access community colleges leads to better employment opportunities for individuals, furthers educational opportunities, and enriches personal and professional lives. During the Golden Age, that is between 1960 and 1980, open access community colleges grew to more than 1,000. By looking at the bar graph, we can see a dramatic increase between those dates. Today, the number of the open access community colleges is 1,462. That is according to the U.S. Department of Education and the American Association of Community Colleges. So nationwide, we are seeing a large percentage of post-secondary students attending two-year colleges. This includes the open access community colleges, and the percentage of the attendance has more than doubled in the last half century. Enrollment jumped from 17.8% to 45% today, and in some states, the enrollment percentage is much higher than the national average, such as California, New Mexico, and Wyoming. More than 55% of all post-secondary students attend open access colleges today. Historically speaking, in the timeline of higher education, modern open access community colleges are relatively a new enterprise when compared to the traditional establishments of the American higher education system. At the rate which these institutions have emerged, there is a general lack of consensus regarding the potential pros and cons that open access community colleges have on the economic system. Currently, research does reveal open access institutions are being the forerunner in improving economic growth, largely due to graduation rates. However, education is at a critical point to establish more intensive research on open access community colleges and to identify the scope of economic impact. The government, policymakers, learning societies, and other academic communities need to better understand the need for future outputs and the impact of open access community colleges on our economic system. Before I get into the research, I would like to take a second to cover the relationship between national economic trends and the open access community college. So, what we know is that during economic downturns, there is a significant boost in demand for community colleges by society because in these times, there usually follows a high unemployment rate. An unemployment rate leads to people looking to be trained in jobs that are recovering from recession times, and furthermore, we know that recession leads to greater budget cuts in the education, right when the funds are needed the most to help improve recession downfalls. Now, research specifically to this topic is done by Crookston and Hooks in 2012, and they focus on understanding the open access community colleges' contribution and impact on local employment growth and additional contributions to human capital development. Crookston and Hooks gathered data from 44 states and measured it on 4 different time periods. They looked at open access community colleges that were established in 1977 through 2004, and they ran analyses, and Crookston and Hooks found that community colleges were established in 1998 through 2004 time period. These are the newly established community colleges in the research, do not have an immediate positive and significant contribution to employment growth. And in fact, the relationship between the two variables is negative. This is due to reasons that the next study in the presentation will actually cover. But in addition to their findings, they found that open access community colleges that were established in the latest time periods showed a significant positive impact on the local and state economy. So, for example, as graduates increased with associate degrees, the poverty rate in the service area decreased. Furthermore, in 1984 through the 1990 time period, there was a decrease in state appropriations for community colleges. However, despite the decrease in appropriations, the research suggested that community colleges still played a strategic role in helping regional areas that were experiencing these recession symptoms. There were job increases in job opportunities, a significant increase in classes developed in the service area of the community college to meet the training needs of employers through contract training. And even so, Crookston and Hooks also discovered that as this decrease of money came away from the community colleges, there was a significant increase in support for building prison infrastructures in the region. Additional research comes from Schuler, and he sought out the economic impact of community colleges on the local community and state. And he specifically looked into the business volume of a state. So Schuler conducted 19 analyses on 19 states throughout the U.S. His findings showed staggering statistics that support the totality of institutional expenditures and increased individual earnings and spending power when associated with the open access community college system. And it has the effects of adding more than $1.3 billion in business volume to a state's economy. He specifically found that open access community colleges in Miami-Dade in Florida contributed an annual impact of $512.7 million on the economy each. When looking into both direct and indirect impacts, one open access community college can contribute up to $92 million in an increase of business volume in a rural region of a state. The reason of this is human capital. The community college is both consumer and producer in the economy. And as with any business, the college spends money on buildings and maintaining an infrastructure and on other resources and materials, and specifically on employees. And as a producer, the major product of the college, through its academic programs, is human capital. The investment to produce human capital increases the production capacity and earning power of the individual, therefore leading towards an economic impact of human capital that includes energy, motivation, skill, and knowledge. The outlier of the research, however, is closely related to Crookston and Hooks, with the impact not necessarily impacting the economy during its initial establishment. And so what Schuler found was that the initial establishment of an open access community college in a region negatively affects the local economy at first because of increased operations of costs of municipal and public school services used by the college, and its taxes are not received because of its tax-exempt status. However, over time, as the institution becomes established, the positive economic impacts quickly outweigh the initial impacts, and at that point, the long-term benefits begin to kick in. Now, something that was very interesting that was found in this research was that open access community colleges in the United States are not only impacting local, state, and the national economy, it is expanding globally. The open access community college model is being adopted across the globe in desperate and developing countries. Tindorf and Glass argue that the U.S. open access community college model is increasing human capital and promoting greater economic growth in developing countries. In their study, they found that developing countries have expanded their open access community college sector and have experienced a positive and significant effect on the economic growth. Specifically, community colleges are playing a centralized role in ensuring that developing countries are part of the global knowledge economy. This is allowing developing countries to respond rapidly to global labor market needs by making education more accessible and affordable. Now, in conjunction to the accessibility and affordability, they are directly contributing to the increase in human capital, which is the spur to economic growth. In comparison to developing countries that have not adopted the U.S. open access community colleges, they are doing significantly worse and are not developing at a high enough rate. And in fact, the research shows that those who have adopted and obtained the model of the U.S. open access community college show that there's an increase of 1% in GDP per capita for every 10% increase of education enrollment. So to summarize the research on our questions on how do open access community colleges contribute to economic growth, we find that open access community colleges contribute to economic growth directly and indirectly. Direct benefits arise when the colleges train first-time workers and give existing workers the skills that they need for their new career, and this increases the productivity of the local and state workforce and even into the national workforce. Furthermore, open access community colleges boost the local and the state jobs and infrastructure and their operations, and these have actually been significantly found important in rural areas and specifically to the regional business sales of that areas, as Schuler showed. And each of these results result in some type of indirect monetary contribution by the community college. So specifically, the community college helps add to the total earnings of the community, whether it's through college graduate tax revenue, contributions to charity, or even the success of completing civic duties. So, with all this said, how does this impact higher education finance? Well, the short answer in that decision is higher education is at the mercy of the ever-changing economic system. Predicting the next global financial crisis or market recession is nothing more than an educated guess based on trends. What we do know, though, is that there will be another recession, and that institutions would be wise in preparing by practicing and implementing sound fiscal policies. But overall, the status of the national economy dictates what role an open access community college is going to play. With that said, the education leaders have to consider when it comes to actively researching out the economic flow and its impact on the state and higher education institutions. Over the past couple decades, many open access community colleges have adapted well to the evolving education needed in the population amid the continuing change of the economic conditions. These colleges have played an increasingly important lead as financing budget managers evolve in their approaches to not only help open access institutions survive, but to thrive. If they have not, it is now more important than ever for educational officials to begin to evolve in their financial approaches and innovate in additional revenue programs that will subsidize the niche of their institutions. It would be wise for the presidents and financing budget managers to view the future numbers of the labor market and drive their institution monies towards a specific field to teach a set of skills that will meet the demands of the changing workforce. And according to the projections, community colleges will need to produce more healthcare workers. The question is, how many open access community college leaders will heed to the projections? In conjunction with this concept, the state legislature must balance state allocations more efficiently between the community colleges and four-year institutions, no matter the status of the economy, or at least recognize where the allocations need to be spent more effectively. This is where it is important to exercise the findings of research, integrity, and financial soundness between the two entities. Funding four-year institutions in an unbalancing model does not provide the accessible and affordable education needed to increase human capital to improve economic growth. There is a desperate need for institutions and financially sound funding that link education needs with the needs of the market and community. Ideally, open access community colleges provide this bridge to the labor market. Now, after presenting the research and developing a clearer picture about the economic impact of open access community colleges, there's a couple recommendations that should be made to utilize open access institutions more effectively. One, policymakers must communicate the value of the open access community college. Through the expansion of open access community colleges, there has been an increase in higher education opportunities for Americans. In addition, community colleges should be vastly more promoted in their role to provide immediate and long-term recovery to disaster-stricken communities, and they are adaptable and responsive to the diversity needs of the local populations. Now, two, there needs to be an expansion of developmental education throughout the United States. Increasing enrollment by expanding development education will provide the workforce basic literacy and mathematics education to specialized technical skilled workers, and that will tailor to the economic improvement to the regional business and industry needs. In many of the areas of the United States, there is a demand by the struggling of the many institutions needing developmental education. By investing in development education, open access community colleges open pathways for learners who are underserved. Without expanding this bridge, many of the Americans will be left behind. As demand increases for higher education, developmental education must be the central aspect of massification and diversification on education policy. I'd like to thank you for taking part of this presentation. I hope I inspired immense thought. Thank you.